Hi YouTube, my name is Ian and this is my channel Big Rock Media. So as someone who's owned a few different travel trailers, a few different trucks, and who's done a lot of pretty popular YouTube videos on travel trailers, the question that I get asked and the question that I see out there the most is, what can I safely tow with my truck, car, or SUV? Or, I want to buy X trailer, can I tow this and can I haul this with my vehicle safely? So today I'm going to break this down in the most simple terms that I can. So really this is a crash course on tow capacity, payload, hitch ratings, sway control, and everything you need to know to tow safely. Okay, so let me know if this sounds familiar. You visited an RV dealership and you came in with whatever it was, your Toyota Highlander, your Chevy Colorado, or whatever car you have. And you said to the salesman, oh, what trailers can I tow? And they showed you this whole big aisle of trailers that seemed huge and heavy. And they said, oh yeah, you'll be fine towing this. Or let's say maybe you drove in with an F-150 and you saw the ad saying that it has an 11,000 pound tow capacity. Does that mean you can tow an 11,000 pound toy hauler? Well, the dealership is probably going to tell you yes, because guess what? They're commission-based and they just want to sell you trailers. But today I'm going to tell you the truth about how to understand this. And the truth is you probably cannot tow a travel trailer that's at the maximum tow capacity of your vehicle. Okay, now before we get started, there's some homework and some terminology that we need to go through. So you're going to need to know this information for each of these data points. So let me explain what they mean. So the first thing is gross vehicle weight rating, GVWR. This is the maximum amount that your vehicle is allowed to weigh with all of its cargo and including the hitch weight of your trailer. So you need to know your GVWR. GCWR, gross combined weight rating. This is how much total your trailer and vehicle can weigh all together with all your cargo and everything loaded. Or instead of that, you can get your towing capacity of your specific vehicle. It's one and the same. So here's how you do this. If you take the GCWR minus the GVWR of your vehicle, that's going to be your tow rating, which makes sense, right? Because the gross vehicle weight rating of your car plus the tow capacity of the car is going to be your gross combined weight rating for your truck and your trailer. You need to know the payload of your vehicle. So you can find the payload in the door jamb of your vehicle. Let me show you. Okay, so on my F-150, and this is how all modern vehicles are, you're going to go inside the driver's side door jamb and you're going to look for this yellow sticker, tire and loading information. Here you're going to find where it says the combined weight of occupants and cargo should never exceed 1,496 pounds. That's your payload capacity right there, and that's very important to understand. The payload for an F-150 or Highlander or whatever vehicle is not the same across the board. What I mean is that depending on the options that your vehicle has and the various ways it's configured, the payload can vary dramatically. For instance, on the F-150, Ford will advertise something like, oh, the F-150 best-in-class payload, 3,000 pounds. Well, as I just showed you, my truck is only 1,496 pounds. That's half of what they're advertising. The reason for this is vehicles have different options installed which make it heavier and reduce your payload. Also, there's different configurations. Think about all the axle ratios, transmissions, engine choices, cab lengths, bed lengths. Now I'm talking about pickup trucks, but this applies to any vehicles. So you need to know the exact payload for your exact vehicle. So look in your door jamb and write that down. Another thing you need to know for these calculations is the estimated weight of all your passengers and cargo. So what I mean is that when you're ready to go on your camping trip, estimate the weight of your passengers and all your camping gear that you're going to have. This is going to be the cargo you're putting in the truck. And we're going to add this to the hitch weight of your trailer to know if you're over payload or not. So that's an important thing. You need to know the gross vehicle weight rating of your trailer. So the GVWR is the same thing I mentioned earlier. The GVWR of your car is how much that can weigh fully loaded. Same thing for your trailer. Your trailer also has a gross vehicle weight rating, which is how much that trailer is allowed to weigh safely as its maximum. So the trailer will have a dry weight, which is a whole nother topic because dry weights are kind of misleading. But what you really want to look at is the GVWR, which is how much that trailer can weigh legally if you load it up with everything you need. So this is kind of a topic for another video, but you want to make sure that you're not overloading your trailer, right? So the GVWR is the maximum permissible weight of your trailer. There are instances where people overload their trailer. So to calculate that, you would basically look at the dry weight of the trailer. There's also going to be a sticker on the inside the door of the trailer that says what it weighs with all of its factory installed options and full propane tanks. So you're going to take that weight plus the estimated weight of whatever cargo you're loading into the trailer, and also if you're filling up the fresh water tank, how much that weighs, and add that all together and make sure that's under the GVWR of your trailer. Another data point that you need to know is the hitch weight of your trailer. Some people call it the pin weight, the hitch weight. It basically is the weight that's pressing down on the hitch onto your vehicle. You can find this in your trailer specifications. If you can't find it in the paperwork that came with your trailer, most RV manufacturers have this listed online in some sort of data table that you can download. You also need to know what type of hitch you have. Hitches are either class 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on the weight rating, and we're going to get into that. And finally, if you're using a weight distribution hitch, you need to know the specifications of that. But we're going to talk about the situations, why or why not you might need a weight distribution hitch. All right, so hitches get a little bit confusing because you've got the receiver, which is the part of your truck where the hitch goes into, which is going to have a certain weight rating. And you've also got the hitch itself and, of course, the ball. Now, without getting too caught up in all this, you just want to kind of look at the weights of all those and make sure that they're making sense for your truck and your trailer and they're matching to each other. So this hitch has a weight rating of 6,000 pounds and it's a 600-pound weight distribution hitch, 600-pound tongue weight, which is perfectly matched for my Lance trailer, but depending on your trailer, it's going to be different. But the basic point is you need to know what is the receiver rating on the hitch of your vehicle and can it handle the weight of your trailer. And then also your hitch itself, what is it rated for and what is your ball rated for. On my ball, it says 6,000 pounds right here on the ball. Now, if you've got one thing in the equation that's less than everything else, then that's going to be your limiting factor. So, even if my hitch, let's say this was a 10,000 pound hitch, and let's say my receiver is like 12,000 pounds, which I think it is because this truck has a max tow package. But anyway, if I have a 6,000 pound ball, which is determined by how big the shaft on the ball is, then that's going to be my limiting factor if that's my lowest point. So for my setup, I should not be exceeding 6,000 pounds unless I change out this ball. So I want to go back to tow capacity for a second. As I mentioned, manufacturers are in this BS war about trying to claim the most towing capacity. So there's a few things to keep in mind. Number one, it's mostly marketing. Number two, the truck that you actually buy, like for instance my truck, is not going to have anywhere near the towing capacity that they're advertising in the commercials. Because the trucks that they advertise, or the SUVs that they advertise with those tow ratings, are very specific packages. It might be a totally stripped out model with a long bed, with no options, with extra towing gear that nobody orders. In other words, probably the vehicle you have is not set up that way and therefore does not have that high of a tow rating. So the test that the manufacturers do, it's something called J2807. So basically J2807 establishes criteria for manufacturers. The vehicle has to be able to tow a certain amount of weight up a certain percentage grade at a certain speed without overheating or braking. It also comes at a certain temperature, and there's other criteria they look at. But again, this is it's not a controlled environment, but it's an environment that you are not entering into when you're towing your travel trailer. Towing a load of bricks up a hill in Arizona with a perfectly equipped truck is not the situation you're in. So you can't go based on that weight rating, and that's why I'm making this video, so you can understand exactly what you can actually tow or haul with your truck or SUV. So we'll use my setup as an example. So with my truck as an example, I showed you the payload is 1,500 pounds. Now let's assume that I have a 10,000 pound trailer, which in fact, the manual says this truck can tow somewhere around 12,000 pounds based on how it's configured. But what we're going to show now is that actually it can't, most likely because we're going to overload the payload, and here's why. So let's say we've got our 10,000 pound trailer. Let's say that it has a 15% tongue weight, meaning that 15% of the trailer weight is pushing down on the tongue of the trailer where it interfaces with your hitch. That's on the higher end, but it could be anywhere between 10 and 20%. It varies a lot, but let's say that it's a 15% for this trailer. So now that's 1,500 pounds. So we can already see we have a problem. We've already maxed out the payload of my truck, and that's before I get in the seat, that's before I put cargo in the bed, that's before I put my wife and kid in it or any sort of camping gear. So basically I'm already SOL. I can't tow that trailer because I can't load anything in the truck. I'm already at my maximum payload capacity with 0 items in the truck and 0 passengers just being hitched up. And that's why payload is important. And that's why you're going to be exceeding your payload capacity far before you exceed your tow rating. So in the real world, I'm going to have 300 pounds worth of passengers. Let's say I have another 300 pounds in camping gear. That's 600 pounds right there. So 1,500 pounds, which is my payload, overall payload capacity, minus that 600, leaves me only 900 pounds for the tongue weight of the trailer. Now, if I had a trailer that had a 10% tongue weight, I could do a 9,000 pound trailer, assuming that was 10% would be 900 pounds. But if I had a trailer with a 15% tongue weight, which is more like what my Lance has, that means I'm going to be limited to a 6,000 pound trailer because 15% of 6,000 is 900 pounds. Okay, so here's a real world example of what I'm talking about with payload and how it's so easy to approach your payload, even with a trailer that's only half the weight of your tow vehicle's rating. So like I mentioned, my tow vehicle has a tow rating of something like 12,000 pounds. My trailer has a gross vehicle weight rating of 5,500 pounds. It's pretty lightly loaded right now, and I don't have any fresh water in it. So I might be around 5,000 pounds thereabouts. The hitch weight, if you figure 10 to 15%, I'm probably around somewhere between 500 and 700 pounds hitch weight. The hitch weights always actually are a little heavier in reality than the manufacturers will say. So you can see here I'm using a weight distribution hitch to push some of this weight back onto the trailer axles and also back onto the front axle of the truck. Now, don't pay too much attention here because this is kind of cattywampus with the terrain is unlevel here, so it looks like my suspension travels all crazy, but don't worry about that. If you look at the cargo that I have, so I've got a motorcycle which is around, probably close to 300 pounds with luggage and 4 gallons of gas in it. I've got, baby strollers, I've got ramps, and over here, if you look, I've got a generator which is pretty heavy, like 70 pounds. I've got propane bottles, fuel tanks, and then we're going to have stuff inside the truck that's going to add weight, cargo, passengers. I've got my wife and my kid. So probably let's say the hitch weight is just 600 pounds, and let's say I've got a 300 pound motorcycle, so that's 900 pounds. I've got another 100 pounds of camping gear, that's 1,000 pounds. 300 pounds of passengers, so I'm up to 1,300 pounds, and my payload's only 1,500, so I'm within 200 pounds of overloading this F-150 with a max tow package and a 3.5 EcoBoost with a small little 5,000 pound trailer. So think about that. If you've got a big trailer and a bunch of gear and a big family, you're probably overloading your half-ton truck. Just telling you that for a fact. So anyway, let's get on with the video. Now you might be saying, well, why does it matter if I'm over payload? My truck can take it, or I've towed bigger trailers than that with my Chevy Colorado or my, whatever vehicle it is, and I was just fine, and my buddy Joe did this. Well, there's a couple reasons why you do not want to go over your payload capacity, even if you think your vehicle can handle it. Number one is liability. If God forbid you were to be in some sort of accident with your rig and anyone was injured or there's any sort of property damage, good luck in any sort of lawsuit if it was found to be that you had overloaded your vehicle past its legal limits. The other thing is just general safety. So even if you don't get in an accident, you want to feel confident and safe that your family's okay going up and down mountain passes and things like that with your trailer, and just you don't want to be overstressing your vehicle. So there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to overload the legal limits of your truck, car, SUV. So you really need to pay attention to this payload thing and make sure you're not going over GVWR. So there's a couple other checkpoints that you need to make sure you're okay with. Your vehicle is going to have a gross axle weight rating, or GAWR. Now this is harder to weigh because you're going to have to go to a truck scale to actually know how much weight is on your individual axle, but sometimes you might reach your axle weight rating before you hit the maximum payload of your truck, further adding to the complication of this. But I would say for most people, if you make sure you're sticking to your payload limits, You're probably not going to have too much of a problem with your gross axle weight rating, but it is something to keep in mind. That is another rating that you're supposed to be within. Next up on the checklist is the tires of your truck. So tires actually have a load range, and you'll see like load range C, D, and E are common. I'm not going to go deeply into this, but you need to know what those weight ratings are and make sure that that's not a limiting factor for you. So if you have, like, let's say load range C tires on your truck, which aren't that heavy, and you're maxing out your payload, you might be hitting the max weight rating on your tires for that axle before you hit your payload. So just another thing to keep in mind. But I would say on average, you're probably gonna run into that payload problem before you start overloading the weight rating of your tires. Okay, let's talk briefly about towing safety and specifically trailer sway. Trailer sway is a common issue. It's extremely dangerous, and if you've ever been through it, it's one of the most scary things you can ever experience when you're driving a vehicle and towing. So there's a couple things that contribute to a swaying trailer. The most common is weight that's not balanced properly front to back on the trailer. So towing stability is greatly impacted by having more weight on the front of the trailer, on the tongue of the trailer, than the back. A lot of you have seen the video out there which uses the model. I'll try to put a clip of that here, where they move weight to the back of the model trailer and the trailer will not correct a sway, but if they move that weight to the front of the trailer will have a little sway and then it will stop. It'll correct itself. This is incredibly important to understand, and this is the reason why trailers are not totally balanced front to back. They're going to have more weight on the front, which contributes to the payload problem that you often have with your vehicle because you've got all that weight pushing down on your hitch, but it also makes for a more stable towing experience and minimizes that sway. Now, that's not to say that even if you have that proper tongue weight of 10 to 15%, that you can't have sway. You still can have really bad sway. Other things that contribute to it would be an improperly loaded setup anywhere in your truck, trailer, improperly inflated tires, strong crosswinds, being passed by trucks, or just having a really long trailer with a lot of side area that's being impacted by the wind, and a small tow vehicle. The wheelbase of your vehicle impacts the stability. So there's a lot of factors. So my advice to mitigate any sort of sway is a couple things. Number one, make sure you're within all of your limits for your truck and your trailer, everything we talked about in this video. Make sure that all your tires on your truck and trailer are properly inflated. Make sure that you don't have way too big of a trailer for the truck or tow vehicle that you're using. Make sure that when you load your trailer that you're focusing any extra weight that you're loading in towards the front of the trailer. There's a reason why propane tanks and batteries are at the front of trailers and not at the back. So there's other things you can do to help control sway once you've taken care of the basics. You can use a sway control bar or a hitch, a weight distribution hitch like the one I have that has sway control built in. So I'll put photos of these here, but the sway control bars use a friction system to help prevent sway. It gives you one extra thing to hook up, and I don't like them. So what I use a hitch, a weight distribution hitch that has sway control built in because of friction on the metal weight bars pressing down right here. Okay, so how do you know if you need a weight distribution hitch? Well, there's a few ways to tell. It's not an exact science. So weight distribution hitches are used to simply transfer some weight off of the tongue of the trailer, off of your hitch, to the front axle of your tow vehicle and also back onto the axle or axles of the trailer. This is helpful for several reasons. One, it can help reduce the squat and the overloading of the bumper of your vehicle. It can improve the handling and the ride of your vehicle because you're shifting some of that weight off the back towards the front and balancing that weight. You're increasing your steering response and your steering feel and safety. Also, you've probably gathered by now that this actually does reduce your payload problem a little bit because it shifts some of the weight back to the axles of the trailer. Now, I don't include that in the calculation because I figured to be on the safe side and assuming maybe you don't use one of these weight distribution hitches, that you need to calculate the full tongue weight of the trailer when calculating your payload. But yes, technically if you use a weight distribution hitch, you are taking a little bit of weight off of that, but it's not a whole lot. So again, I really wouldn't factor that in. But how do you really know you need a weight distribution hitch? Well, if you notice that your tow vehicle is really sagging when you put your trailer on, then you probably need one. If you're approaching the maximum payload or the maximum tow rating, or even within, I would say, 60% or so of any of those figures, you probably want to consider a weight distribution hitch. I pretty much always tow with the weight distribution hitch, even if I'm in doubt about needing it, because it helps control sway. I prefer how it helps restore the handling of my truck, and it just gives a more balanced feel overall. Now the downside is it's a little bit more work to hook up and detach and attach, but you get used to it and it's not that hard at the end of the day. It's very alarming to me how many rigs I see that are clearly overloaded. And usually they're overloading their truck or SUV in terms of payload far before they're reaching that maximum tow rating. So even with this modest Lance trailer, which is a 21-foot trailer, it has a GVWR 5,500 pounds, which is less than half the tow rating of my F-150 with the max tow package and the 3.5 EcoBoost. So you might think to yourself, well, I've got this really impressive truck, it can tow 12,000 pounds, but actually with this trailer, with the tongue weight that it has, and when I put my cargo and my passengers in my truck, I have very little weight capacity left over in terms of payload on my truck. I can barely put a lightweight motorcycle in without going overweight on my payload of my truck. And my best advice I can give you is, no offense to salesmen and dealerships, but don't trust what the car dealer is telling you and don't trust what the RV dealer is telling you, because their job is to move units and make their commission, not to ensure your safety. They don't know all the factors going into it that we've covered in this video, so don't listen to them. Do your own homework. Knowledge is power. With all that being said, I hope to see you guys out in the campgrounds and out on the road. I wish you all a safe RV experience. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel for more RV content, and we'll see you out there.